Rightio. Good morning. Oh, here we go.
I'll just jump on and check the Facebook.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Oh, what a great little turnout for our first little online workshop. Here we go. Good morning, team. Just going to give it about 3 minutes max. Just let a few people turn up who want to turn up. Good morning, everybody, on this glorious Hump Day Wednesday. Oh, I'm super pumped for today. Just getting in some electrolytes. I'm going for a run after this little workshop, so don't mind me. Chuck a little emoji or something like that in the comments. Let me know you're here. Let me know you're listening. Oh, or then just say listening. That's good too. Hey, Mal. Good to see you. Good to see you.
You too.
Beck, you have got the best Zoom screensaver picture. Nice big Beck smile. Oh, no, there she is. And hello to those people jumping on live on Facebook as well. Dark and Delicious is in the house. He's here. You're very lucky today for all the ladies that are joining us. All right, little preface and preamble. Just pop your stuff on mute. You can come off at any time and ask questions. Really quickly. So a bit of a preface. I'm obviously just going to be me today, and that being said, what that means is I often use a little bit of foul language. So I wouldn't recommend, if you are listening to this on the recording later on, because it's available for anybody that wants to listen to it, there will be foul language, so watch out with watching this around small children and easily offended individuals. They're probably not going to like listening to this very much, but for those of you that are fine with a bit of foul language, that's all good. I don't think this is a substitute for one-on-one mental performance work or therapy or coaching. It's discussion points and a thought-provoking concept that we will speak to today, or that I'll speak to, which is about the concept of minding our language. It's about our internal dialogue, the way we speak to ourselves, the language that we use. But as mentioned, I think it's really important to say that I will be going over a generalized, broad discussion point. And this is probably, as mentioned, not a substitute for specific one-on-one work. But it is thought-provoking, which I think is really important. And so on that note, today's little topic, our very first mental performance workshop, is on the topic of minding your language. Now, it's not the profanities that we use, which I've already sort of asked for permission for. It's more the way in which we talk to ourselves. And there's lots of different ideas, theories, and concepts around this, but it's important to know that the language that we use in which we talk to ourselves is very hypnotic in nature, and that our thoughts and our thinking can become things, and our words can begin to create our world. And to quote one of the great mentors of mine that I've been very fortunate to work with for a number of years is David Neath. And David Neath, or to many people is known as Big Dave, he would have to be one of the world's leading mental performance coaches. He lives in New Zealand, in Auckland, and works with a lot of elite level international athletes, especially those pertaining to the UFC. And I'd like to give credit to Dave. He is very famous for the term, our mind and the language that we use will contribute to what we are doing, or it will contaminate. The mind has a propensity and a predisposition to either help us or potentially hinder us. We do have governance and agency, how we react to this language, but essentially our thoughts and our thinking, we don't have a lot of control over. Dr. Joe Dispenza In a study that he conducted, they found that the human mind is capable of up to 62 to 82,000 thoughts per day. That is a thought every 3 seconds for the numbers people out there, which is scary. Imagine being the poor prick, or individual, I should say, that would have to count those thoughts. So a thought every 3 seconds is coming in, and we can't control that, whether we're meditating, being mindless, sitting underneath a wonderful eucalyptus tree by a creek in deep meditation. Those thoughts are still coming in thick and fierce, but we do have governance and agency on how we react or how we respond to those thoughts. That we have some control over. And that is central to the discussion today around minding our language, becoming more mindful about the thoughts and the thinking that contaminates, or the thoughts and the thinking that contributes. Now, I've gone above and beyond today, and I've in the name of scientific research and empirical evidence, I've spared no expense on today's props and producing some really good resources. This here is a Tupperware container with some water in it. And this today is a very powerful metaphor and analogy for our mind. So this here is a representation of my mind and my consciousness today. Can you guys all see that? Just give us a little lovely. Oh, lovely thumbs up, Cat. Beautiful. So this is my mind. It's nice and clear. I've got clarity of thought. I've got clear thinking. And I was having a discussion this morning with an absolutely remarkable human being about a little challenge that I've currently got. Now, I've enlisted the services of a high-performance dietitian. Now, my conflict is I've invested a lot of money in this dietitian, and upon reflection on this food plan that I now have, because I'm about to run an ultra marathon with a few friends of mine in November, which is a 400-kilometer ultra marathon. So 10 marathons in 5 days, which is 80 Ks a day for 5 days. And so I got the help of this dietitian, right? And I can't help but think, whilst this individual's got a brilliant amount of formal education and is very switched on, I feel like the diet's written by a fucking 7-year-old, because there's pikelets, there's paddle pops of a nighttime, chocolate ones I might add, Biscoff spread with up and go poured all over Weet-Bix. Sounds wonderful, but it literally sounds like my 7-year-old daughter's written this nutrition plan. But anyway, I'm going to stick to it. But the problem is I haven't had these sweet goods for like 20 years. I'm a Whole Foods advocate, chicken, broccoli, almonds, fucking you name it. If it's grown on a tree or it's natural, I'm all about it. But now I'm into all these sugary items that apparently support high performance. But the problem is I've started overeating these things. I get a little taste of these LCM bars. So I have an LCM bar and some raisin toast before training. Fuck, I tell you, it's brilliant. I'm either going to be 120 kilos when I start this ultra marathon, or it's going to work. But anyway, back to the mind. So this morning, this was my mind, clarity of thought at 4 a.m. before I sniffed and inhaled an LCM bar coupled with some raisin toast. And of course, my mind starts to go, oh, do you really need that? Why don't you just have the LCM bar? Or why don't you just have the raisin toast? You don't have to have both. And the first shit thought goes in my mind. So now the stinking thinking has started. The shitty committee arrived at 4 a.m. and my first shit thought went in. And I start thinking, did I really have to have that LCM bar and that raisin toast? And because I got a taste for it, I thought, well, I'm going to train hard today. I'm going to do a strength and conditioning class this morning, and then I'm going to go for a 16-kilometer run later on. I should be all right. Why don't I have another piece of raisin toast? So I have another piece of raisin toast covered with a generous spread of butter. And I accidentally had way too much butter and chucked some jam on there too. So then the narrative starts. Did you really have to do that? you're only meant to have one piece of raisin toast and an LCM bar. You didn't need 2 pieces of raisin toast, an LCM bar, 400 grams of butter, and 200 grams of strawberry jam. So now the shit thinking has started. And now my thinking is starting to become clouded. It's starting to become murky. And see, even if I try and look through this little container, which is a representation of my mind this morning, I start to look through, I can still see, and I've still got a clear vision of what I'm meant to be doing, but it's starting to get clouded. Can you guys see that? So it's starting to compound. Now I feel like I've got a little bit of lower abdominal bloating from the raisin toast and all the butter and the jam. Now I'm starting to have some pretty bad thoughts about a time in my past when I was really overweight. Now all of a sudden my mind's reminding me about the time that I got to 116 kilos when I left the military. I spent 9 months eating, drinking, abusing my body, and my mind has taken the liberty and opportunity to remind me of how I felt when I was really overweight. And now I'm starting to think about it on the drive to work, about how overweight I am and how shit I feel and how my day's going to be such a struggle because I've eaten all this sugar and now I'm about to get this massive come down. And do you see now my whole clarity of mind and the way I think has been contaminated? Can you guys relate to that? Maybe not the raisin toast and the LCM bar, but perhaps when our mind in all her brilliance, and I'm sure the mind is a female, it reminds us, pun completely intended, of some of the mistakes we've made. It brings up some of that negative stuff and layers that in. Another way of looking at how the mind can work, team, and I like to grab some of these complex theories and simplify them. And if I was to simplify it, I don't know, put in the comments or even a little emoji or a comment on, if you're on Facebook Live, if you've ever had a really good coach in your life. Like a really good coach. Yeah. So Mal's had a really good coach. I've had a couple actually, but one springs to mind, was a guy, Kevin Barry Sr. in Christchurch. He's passed on now, but beautiful man. And he used to sit right on the border of challenge and support. He would call me on my shit. The first one to give me a hug and give me a little back rub when I was running rough. So that's a really good coach. Now think about in your life, have you ever had a critic? And to give you an example from my life really quickly, I came from an amateur boxing background. I came from an amateur boxing background, and I remember competing when I was about 14 or 15 in Christchurch. And it was in this old pub. It was called Harry's Sports Bar, I think. And I remember being scared, absolutely petrified of my opponent. And I could hear people in the crowd. Well, it wasn't a big crowd, but I could hear people close to the boxing ring on a table taking the piss out of me, criticizing me. I was like 14, maximum 15. And I had a terrible haircut. So they could be forgiven because it was absolutely fucking appalling, to be honest. And they were talking about my hair and I could hear them criticizing me. So our mind's like that, team. Our mind can be a great coach. It can say, come on, Beck, you're doing really well. I know your knee's uncomfortable in this run, but you got this. You got this. You've been through tougher things than this. Come on, keep going, keep moving, one step in front of the other. Or it can be a critic. And it can be like, oh, what are you thinking going for a run today? Your knee's sore. You should be at home. What are you thinking going out running when you've got a niggly knee? So our mind will innately and organically trend towards negativity. So it's actually going to trend towards the critic. And from an evolutionary perspective, we have evolved to have a bias towards negativity because that's what keeps us alive. That's what keeps us safe. That's what keeps us alive. So we are wired that way. So we have to work really hard to work against that, to find the contrast, to listen to the coach and talk to ourselves like we'd talk to a best friend or someone that we're trying to help. So we actually got to work for that. And then herein lies another little challenge, is that this negativity can layer in and it can create a pathway. The brain will wire in this language because it doesn't know the difference between real or fake. If you think about the last time you watched a horror movie and you sit there watching a horror movie or a thriller, you might be at home with your husband or your wife and you're watching a movie that's quite intense and we're getting all of the sensations that we're there. You know, we're waiting for the moment when we get a fright. We're getting all the emotional responses as if we're actually in that event. But if we stood back and we watched, and you walked into the living room and watched some of your family watching a movie and they're all hanging onto the seat, we know that it's not real. But the mind doesn't get that. And this is where this negative self-talk can start to layer in. It can start to create a neural pathway. And this is where things get a little bit dangerous, because we can create what is known as a heuristic or schema. And a heuristic is a mental shortcut. And this can layer in and sometimes solidify pessimism, victim mindsets, some of this negative self-talk that can become a bit of a default. It can become a structure that we go to. And the other thing to add to this is central to limiting our life. When we have this negative self-talk, we can construct beliefs around it, believe it to be true, confirmation bias, start looking for things to confirm our negativity. And this self-talk, these discussions, this internal dialogue that we have in our mind can create our kind of our go-to structure. To quote Shakespeare, who I think was a Kiwi, don't quote me on it, North Island, New Zealander. Shakespeare said, "There's no such thing as good or bad, but thinking makes it so." And to argue Shakespeare's point, William James, who is recognized as the modern forefather of psychology in the late 1800s, was very famous for a statement. He said that one of humanity's greatest discoveries is that we could alter our lives, alter our attitudes by changing our perception. I'll say that again. William James said one of humanity's greatest discoveries is that we could alter our lives, alter our attitudes by altering our perception. So whether we think it's good or we think it's bad, it will be either of those. Thinking will make it so. If I was to speak from the perspective of cognitive behavioral therapy, of which I am a qualified cognitive behavioral therapist, there are strong theories that how we think, and I really hope if you're watching this Zoom recording or live on Facebook, what the cognition that we have, so thinking or thought, our thinking directly affects how we feel. Or another way of saying that is how I think will influence an emotional response. So how I think affects how I feel, and then how I feel will ultimately what? What will that influence? Somebody pop it in the comments, or somebody come off mute and tell me, if I'm thinking something, then I'm feeling something, what is that influencing?
Actions.
Perfect. Yep. Actions and behavior, which is, yeah, one and the same. Two different sides of the same coin. Yep. What I say, how I behave, how I act. And if I look at that on a spectrum, I go think, feel, act. And this is from cognitive behavioral therapy. So if I feel something, if I'm angry, and team, anger is the most passionate emotion we have, it perpetuates, increases, maximizes rapidly. And so if I'm feeling angry, there has to have been a stimulus or an event. Something's happened and I've thought about it. I've started to get angry, and then the next thing that comes out of my mouth is not going to be great. If we think about somebody cutting you off in traffic and they're literally in the wrong, they have not indicated, they've just done as a lot of people do on Nicklin Way on the Sunshine Coast. Just the what? No. They've just cut across, cut you off. Event happens. I think about it. It's pissed me off. He didn't even indicate. What a dick. Then I start to feel agitated, frustrated, discontent. And then I'm going to act according. Well, I have a choice to make. Do I react or do I respond? But where I'm sort of speaking to is thinking from the perspective of cognitive behavioral therapy is influencing how I feel, and therefore how I act. Does that make sense, team? Give me some kind of emoji or something to tell me, to indicate to me that makes sense. Okay, cool. Now for the good news. The good news is the brain is malleable. So the brain is malleable, meaning it's like plastic. We can rewire the brain. We can create new neural pathways, which is central to one of the new frontiers of modern psychology, which is neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity tells us that we can create new neural pathways. And essentially we could rewire the brain. To quote Dr. Joe Dispenza, he believes that a thought or a cognition that we repeatedly have in our brain will look for expression through any practical means. I'll say it again. A thought or cognition that we have repeatedly in our brain will look for expression through any practical means. So if we make a conscious, determined, deliberate effort to reframe, re-engineer, reintegrate the way we think, the way we talk to ourselves, the language that we use, we can change our reality. And if we change our personal reality, we change our personality. By reframing, re-engineering, reintegrating, rewiring, and challenging the way we think. Just because we think something does not mean it's true. Was that a subtle moan of satisfaction that I just heard? Who has anything to share? I'd love somebody to come off mute and just share, because I fired out a lot in the last few minutes. That was quite a lot. Does anybody want to share anything, any thoughts, any key takeaways about what they've heard thus far? Or even a comment in the chat, which is absolutely fine. Something that's just stood out for you. If you listen to all that stuff I just went through and just shared, what What, has anybody got any thoughts to share?
I can go, Jamie.
That
Just
was amazing.
from the weekend, I know we had a conversation, and I had a conversation with myself about what if I could run a half marathon in the bush with some fun hill sprints in between. And I just hung on to that thought the whole time. What if, just as a possibility, as opposed to thinking anything negative. And also with training last night, I was sore and I was pretty tired. But again, I just thought, well, what if I turn up and I'm okay and I get through it? Like, so what you're saying about retraining your thoughts or rewiring your brain, that's really been powerful just in the last few days.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Beck, because that actually highlights one of the, because I want to provide some solutions in this workshop. Because, as I'm human, thank God, and I teach and educate this stuff every day of the week, and I fall into the trap of this thinking and the shitty committee. And one of the greatest tools I've come across is one you just shared so beautifully, Beck, is just reframing the language that we use to serve us. Is our language contributing or is it contaminating? I mean, it's one of the most simple things the great David Neath shared with me, but it was one of the most brilliant. Just because we think something does not mean it's fucking true. Humans, we have this great ability to apply what is known as metacognition. And metacognition means we can have a thought and we can think about that thought, and then I can think about that. So I can essentially observe my thoughts. And I think you've communicated that beautifully, Beck, with your example of, you're in the pain cave when you were out on the run, we're doing some hill sprints, body's aching, and instead of, going down the critics path, oh, this is too much, I shouldn't be doing this, or why am I even listening to Jamie, this is shit, I'm just going to walk. You reframed it to serve you and decided to listen to the coach. And that lends itself to the discussion of these solutions. And I'm going to rattle these off quite quickly, but here's 4 suggestions for reframing, re-engineering, and challenging these thoughts. And the first one is we're going to borrow from what Beck did, and that is to reframe. Is this, I think Ash put something in the comments actually, so I'm going to flog his, I think he said, let me just do a little sneaky scroll here. Yeah, is it helpful or is it harmful? So when you're starting to have this narrative in your mind, this inner dialogue, this internal dialogue, is this going to help me or is this going to be harmful? And then it's inferring what you believe to be true. So grabbing that narrative and changing it. And if we remember that our thoughts can become things and our words will shape our world, our language, to remind everybody, is very hypnotic. It's even worse if I speak it. Is that another subtle moan from Jesus? He's having a great workshop. So if I speak it, Jesus Christ, put the aircon on. If I speak it, I am reinforcing it. I'm giving it meaning. I'll create a belief system around it. So imagine if I pretend to be Beck and I start telling everybody about how shit my knee feels and how difficult this is. What am I doing? I'm reinforcing this language, and I'm going to couple it with beliefs. So if somebody then challenges my narrative, you think about if somebody challenges your beliefs. We're going to get agitated. Don't tell me about my knee. You don't know my life. You don't know what I'm feeling. So we'll start to defend the story. I'm very mindful not to go too far down this pathway because I'm starting to go into different territory. But it can be as simple as reframing our language. Another great way to short circuit and interrupt the pattern of our language is distraction. Very, very useful. One of the greatest distraction tools, and I'm very privileged is probably the word I'd use, privileged to work with a few neurodivergent athletes that are on the spectrum, and they become very hyper-focused. So if they start to experience pain, boom, they'll lock in on that pain, and then the language will start. So as a great distraction, and it's quite a popular tool, is like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 tool. What are 5 things that I can see right now? But starting with, where are my feet right now? Where's my feet? And let me be there. If I go, where's my feet? Like if I look at my stinky little trotters right now, as I'm barefoot, by the way, it's the perks of Zoom. If I look where my feet are right now, my feet are on the floor in my office, and let me be where my feet are right now. So start there. Then I can't think about what's happening in the future, and I can't think about what's happening in the past because I'm right here where my feet are. Then I look for 5 things I can see. So I'm like, right now I can see my water bottle, I can see my electrolytes, I can see the laptop, I see your guys' beautiful faces, I can see my juggling balls. Okay, what's 4 things that I can hear? Okay, I can hear a helicopter outside, I can hear my wife scratching around in the office, I can, I'm listening for 4 things. I can hear the tissues, listening for 4 things. What are 3 things that I can feel? Okay, I can feel my glasses on the bridge of my nose. I can feel my hat on my head. I can feel the ground underneath my feet. Beautiful. What's 2 things that I can smell? My nose is pretty average, to be honest. But if I give it a punt, I can... actually, I can't really smell much, but you guys might be able to smell better than I can. But just making the conscious effort to smell. And the last one, what's 1 thing I can... What have we done? I've done feel. So going through all of your senses. What can I see? What can I hear? What can I feel? What can I smell? What can I taste? So I can taste my electrolyte drink. So that's taken a bit of time. However, in real time, it would happen quite quick. And I've instantly pattern interrupted or short-circuited the language in my head. And I've utilized my senses, and I've brought myself into the present moment.
Yeah, okay.
Very helpful. And if you do have kids, this is a great one with the young ones. Tool number 3 is what is known as reflective awareness. Now, there's a lot more depth to this one, but I'll just give you a quick insight. If things come in pairs, so if I've got some language happening in my head, hold on 2 seconds, Tim. I'll see if I can mute our friend. There we go. Beautiful. Things come in pairs. They come in complementary opposites, like dance partners. If I am feeling angry and I follow that thread, what is the opposite of anger? Somebody come off mute and tell me what's the opposite of anger.
Love.
Love. Beautiful. Love. So if I'm angry, love also exists. This is the dichotomy of the universe. This is known as the principle of polarity, the law of contrast, the law of polarity. There is always equal opposites, complementary opposites. If I am sad, what's the opposite of sad? Kat said happy whilst on mute, but I saw the mouth move. That's good enough for me. So it's happy. So in the moment that you are sad, well played, Kat. Well played. If I am sad, I will be consciously aware of what is sad, what's making me sad, and I will have that language. I will be reinforcing my what could I say? My wife's had a go at me because I didn't empty the dishwasher and I just bolted out the door without cleaning up the kitchen or emptying the dishwasher. That didn't happen, by the way. This is an anecdote. This is just storytelling. I do empty the dishwasher and clean up the kitchen. High standards. High standards. So anyway, and I get all sad and all bunched up about the fact that she's had a go at me. I start getting all sad. I'm consciously aware of what's sad, but I'm unconscious to what's going to make me happy in my life in that moment. This is one of the greatest tools I utilize in my own life, and I recommend it for others. Again, this is just a quick snapshot at this tool. There's a bit more depth to it, but it's also quite simple. You can't have one thing without the other. So in order for us to have life, we have to be, comfortable with knowing that we are going to experience what? If life's over here, what's at the other end? Death, correct. And if I've got daytime, I know for a fact, unless I'm at the North Pole, what else is following daytime?
Nighttime.
Correct, nighttime. If things go up, they have to go what? Cool chat. Down. Okay, down. Awesome. So everywhere you look, it is a dichotomy. And internally, if I'm having shit conversations that are emotionally driven, I am not seeing the other side. And to quote Dr. John D. Martini, you can't have a one-sided life and a two-sided reality. But if our language, if we've worn in a well-worn path in our mind that has got negative self-talk, that's a critic, that's the stinking thinking, the shitty committee, that's going to be locked in. But we can challenge that. And the last tool I'll share with you guys before we wrap up today's workshop is one from cognitive behavioral therapy, which is called a 2-column journal. A bit more organized and ordered. You can compile some negative thoughts through the day. What I do with clients is I will suggest have your phone or a note-taking device like a journal. And what you'll find is you'll have common threads. There'll be moments in your day where you'll start to really criticize yourself. The negative self-dialogue will be running thick and fierce. The shitty committee, the stinking thinking. And so you can write those down and take a little journal. So the 2-column journal, if you imagine like a page in a book, on the left-hand side, we start to compile the automatic negative thoughts. And the acronym is ANT. Automatic negative thoughts. So we write them down as the day goes along, and then sometime during your day, you can sit down and go, right, how much shit thoughts have I had? Okay, I've got 10 things here. And then in the right-hand column, we literally challenge them. So if Beck doesn't mind me using her as an example, if she had some quitting narrative around the knee, she'd be like, this is too hard, my knee's sore, I'm going to quit. She jots that down in her phone. Later on in the day, possibly of an evening, in the right-hand column, she has positive, affirming thoughts, which the acronym is PAT. And what I'd say to the kids that I work with is ants don't like pats. Feel free to use that if you want. So we challenge the automatic negative thought with something that is positive, it is affirming, and it's a thought, but it has to be the truth. That's the only caveat to that. It's got to be the truth. You can't make some shit up you don't believe. So in Beck's situation, knees hurting, I've had enough, I don't need to do these hill sprints, I'm so shit at hill sprints. By the way, I'm just generalizing, Beck didn't say that, but just as an example. And the right-hand side, I am capable. I might not be super fit yet. Keyword yet. And by the way, I'm making this up. Beck is actually very fit. So, and then you go through the list. And as I mentioned, most people that I've prescribed that to, that you're looking at a week to 3 weeks max. And then because we've been doing it pragmatically and writing it down, we are starting to rewire the brain. Rewire the way we think. We're using the malleable nature of our brain. We are creating a structure that challenges the negative thinking. And then when people get really good at it, you can start doing it in your head and you don't need the pen and paper. But as a starting point, it's a good suggestion and it's a good way to start building and flexing that muscle, which is our malleable brain and our